Today's presenter is Dave Dozer. Dave, as many of you know, has had a long career both as a customer and as a consultant on different ERP systems. And Dave is our pre-sales guru for today that's going to be sharing Acumatica with us. Dave, I see that you already have Acumatica up on your screen, so I'm going to go ahead and stop talking and turn things over to you.
Great, appreciate it, Jeff. So we'll get this thing kicked off today, and as Jeff mentioned, this is a high-level overview today. So what we're really going to take a look at is we're going to spend a few minutes just getting you acclimated with Acumatica as a system. So what it looks like, how it feels, how you navigate around, and pointing out some things to kind of differentiate it as well from other maybe kind of legacy ERP systems and just how it's a different user experience and a lot more natural and intuitive way to work with an ERP than some other systems that are out there. And then we're going to focus on the actual, essentially, order to production to fulfillment sort of process within the application. It does a lot of other things, but that's really sort of the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of any manufacturing business or even a distribution business at that. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And as Jeff mentioned, we'd love to hear some feedback about maybe some more focused areas to take a look at in the future as well. So with that, let's jump right in and take a look at what makes Acumatica. So the first thing you're going to notice is the whole demonstration today we're going to be doing in Google Chrome. So it is a 100% web-based application. There's no client pieces that need to be installed locally on a user's PC or laptop. And so with that, it can be accessed from any device that's connected to the internet. So my laptop, my phone, my desktop, my iPad, my tablet, any device that has connectivity, you're going to be able to access your instance of Acumatica. And there is also a native mobile app available as well that's more configured to a smaller type of screen. But with that even, you'll notice as we're looking at my main screen here, if I shrink this down a little bit, Acumatica is designed to be responsive, meaning that the elements on the screen actually resize and refit themselves to fit appropriately within the size of the screen that they're being displayed on. So again, like if I'm looking at this on a tablet, it's not going to be jumbled and I'm having to scroll back and forth. So it makes the user experience really, really nice and smooth and intuitive for the folks that are using it. So the first thing I want to look at is the dashboard system within Acumatica. So you'll notice there's a lot of nice, colorful, pretty charts and graphs here on my main screen here. And this is what they refer to as a dashboard. So in this instance, I've got a sales manager dashboard up here on the screen, but there's a lot of out-of-the-box ones and that are tailored more to specific roles. So you might have a production manager, maybe the finance, accounting person as well, and these are very configurable. So, a lot of systems will have some sort of dashboarding technology, but it's something where you're maybe having to write a report and deploy it to the system, or it's some third-party type of add-in that you're using to get these sort of nice visualizations. But this is all out of the box, built in to the application. So you'll notice in my sales manager example here, I've got some key performance indicators up at the top. So things like wins, losses, what my deal size trend is. And so that's one way to visualize that data. But then you'll see I've got some charts as well. So, I can see my top 10 customers, and then as I hover over that, it shows me, the dollars and percentage that are making that up. So none of that's programming. That's just saying I've got some data in the application, and I want it displayed in a specific manner. And that's also, you're also able to drill down on that right out of the box as well. So as soon as I create my top 10 customers pie graph here, or donut chart, I can click on, let's say, USA Bartending here, and that's going to drill me down into all the, in this case, invoices that are making up that piece of the pie. So again, that's not a programming thing that I have to do or a report I have to write. It's as simple as coming up into the design mode up here and just saying I want to add a new widget and creating a new element right there on the screen. So any of the data that's in the application, I have the ability to display that as an indicator, as a chart or a graph, or even just a list of things that need to work on, like the opportunities here, for instance. So it gives me a lot of flexibility in how I want to visualize my data and get the most out of it. And you can see as far as how you arrange it, it's as easy as just dragging and drop these guys around, and you can get it all set up how you want to very quickly and very easily. So that's the visualization dashboard side of it. But then if you'll direct your attention over to the left-hand side of the screen here, you'll see things like payables, receivables, sales orders. These are what would be comparable to like a module in most ERP systems. However, Acumatica refers to these as workspaces. And the reason for that is they're configurable as well. So there's out-of-the-box ones, like the ones we're looking at here, that line up with traditional modules. But as you're implementing the application, you have the ability to create your own, modify your own, and really tailor how your users interact with the system to their specific functional role. So for instance, if I click on sales orders, I get a nice little flyout workspace here that's got some quick actions at the top, like entering a new sales order, a new quote, and then it's got more specific menu options as well, so things like master data maintenance, reports, things that you're kind of used to seeing. But I can, again, mix and match all of those things as well, and even add certain things to my favorites. So you'll see every menu option has a little star beside it. So I can click on that, and what that does is adds that to my favorites workspace here as well. So the whole ideology behind the application is making it very easy to learn, almost more like a consumer type product than what you would consider a traditional ERP, easy to access and easy to use. So the last piece that I want to look at from a navigation standpoint before we start getting into some more transactions is the universal search here at the top. And this is really kind of what we jokingly refer to as the Google search of Acumatica. So when I type something in this box, it's actually searching the whole system. So if I type the word sales order in here, it's searching the menus. So if there's something that I don't do very often and I forget where it's at, like processing 1099s at the end of the year or doing my taxation filings, things like that, I can just type it in and it's going to find where that is in the menu. It'll also search all the transactions in the system as well. So if I need to quickly look up a customer or an invoice or an item, anything like that, it will search all of that for me as well. So I don't have to go to a particular place in the system and search that up. I can find it right from my home screen here. And then if I jump over to files, it's even searching the file repository as well. So as we get a little later on into the demonstration, we'll take a look at linking up files like a PDF, for example, to a transaction, and it's searching within those documents as well for the keywords that you've entered. So again, it's all about being able to find information, the needle in a haystack, so to speak, quickly, efficiently, and easily. So now that we've got the kind of layout, the land field of the land, so to speak, let's get into actually looking at some transactions. So the first thing I want us to take a look at is how a bill of material for an item would be set up and configured. And then we're going to take that item all the way through entering a sales order for it, to producing it, to shipping that sales order, and invoicing that. So today we're going to jump over and take a look at our bills of material. And we're going to tell the story of this Keurig Model 450. So for our demonstration purpose today, we're going to manufacture a Keurig coffee maker to help fuel my coffee addiction. So let's take a look at how this bill of material is structured for this finished good item. So a couple things to point out initially. As we look at this bill of material in the top section of this, you'll notice that my revision here is revision A, and this is active. However, I can have multiple active bills of material for an item. So this is specific to my wholesale warehouse, but as an example, if I also built this in a different physical location, and maybe some of the component parts that I used were a little different, maybe because I could get some other comparable parts cheaper in that location, something to that effect. I could have a bill of material specific to that location in this finished good item, so it would be built a little bit differently based on where I was physically building that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, and then as you create new revisions as well, so let's say I created a new one and marked that as revision B and move this bill of material to history, so to speak, I still have all of those on file. So I can always go back and see what my old bills of material were. So I don't lose any of those changes as I create engineering revisions and change how we're making this product. So I have a lot of visibility into what's always been going on with this bill of material. So the next area I'd like to direct your attention to is the center portion here, where we see assembly and inspection. So this is our product routing. So we're telling it, okay, what steps does this need to go through? What work centers does this need to go through? And certain things like setup time, what sort of machine time there is, if there's any sort of queue time with that as well. So this is what traditionally would be a product routing. So in some systems, that is a separate setup and a separate entity, but within Acumatica, that product routing and the materials that you use on that product are actually combined, which again just kind of makes for a more natural and fluid setup, because you really can't have one without the other. So you'll see here when we've got the assembly step highlighted, that down at the bottom we see all of the different materials that are going into that product, but that's also specific to that step. So you'll notice when I click on inspection here, all of that material disappears. So what that means is all of my raw materials and subassemblies are implicitly tied to a particular step in the operation flow. So I can more smartly, so to speak, line up what materials are necessary at each step. So instead of just pulling them all initially at the beginning, I have the option to maybe pull materials as it's flowing through the manufacturing process and adding those together. So it, again, gives you a lot of flexibility in how to utilize that. Now, another thing I'd like to point out as we're looking at the bill of material setup here is I have the ability to attach files and documents to this particular transaction. So let's say, for instance, I have a drawing that goes along with this particular product. So I can just drag and drop this PDF onto the screen here, and you probably didn't notice it flash there, but now up at the top under Files, that PDF is now linked up to this particular bill of material. So I now have my drawing tied to this bill of material. And I can do it at a macro level like that at the top, or you'll notice down here on the individual materials, I have the ability to link up with the little paperclip documents to an individual material, or even an individual processing step as well. So we have some customers that will set up instruction steps and even link up videos to those steps so that the folks can go in and visually see how to make this product. So again, gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to keep a lot of that engineering data within the application instead of holding it outside on another kind of document management system or anything like that. So that's what our bill of material looks like. So now let's go actually sell something. So I'm going to come over to my sales order module here, and we're just going to go ahead and create a new sales order. And the sales order we're actually going to create for that Keurig that we just took a look at. So we won't spend a lot of time going through the individual fields here on the top section, just a couple little things, like as I'm entering my customer, it does do the progressive type ahead search, so I can start typing either their code or part of their name in, or I can use a little magnifying glass if I need to get more detailed in searching for this particular customer. And we can even add notes to this order as well, just so it can be a little more descriptive. And then as we get down to the bottom section of the sales order here, I can actually start adding my items. So in this case, we're going to add our Keurig. And just a couple things that I want to point out as we're adding this. You'll notice down here at the bottom of the screen, it shows me what my on-hand quantity is, what's available, and all of what's available for shipping and allocated and all of that right in the screen here. So I don't have to necessarily, get out from what I'm doing to go look up what's happening with this item. I can tell right away what's going on with this particular item. And you'll see right here, I even have the ability to go take a look at the inventory summary for this item as well as I'm in process and entering the sales order. So again, it's all about having the right information at the right place. So I can see things like allocations, what's booked, all of that right here with just a click of the button as I'm doing the order entry. So I'm getting the information that I need when I need it and how I need it. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and enter a quantity of 1 for this this particular Keurig. And we'll go ahead and save this. Now, one thing I do want to show on the sales order side, just because this is something that again helps with processes and customer service and just doing things correctly. So I can come over to my shipping settings here, and if I take a look at my ship via, I have this option here to shop for rates. So in this case, we left that ship via blank. So I'm going to say what box I want to package this Keurig in. So this guy goes in a medium-sized box. And where we're going to ship it from, we're going to ship it from our main warehouse. And then if I come up here to the top, I can say refresh rates. And this is actually going to go out to my common carriers and return the rates real time, and then let me pick what the best rate is. Or, if I've got a customer on the phone with me, I can tell them what the price is going to be, what the best rate's going to be, and be able to give that to them in real time. And I restarted my machine a little bit earlier, so hopefully I didn't blow up my integration there. There it goes. It's a little sluggish today on my laptop side. But you'll see, so it's pulling back my next day, my overnight, my priority, all those different rates. I can quote them in real time, what the cost is going to be. So let's say we don't want this to be hugely expensive, so we'll just go FedEx Ground, say OK, and then that's going to push FedEx Ground in there. So again, just something to help with the order entry process, help with customer service, and just make processes flow better and more easily. So I'm popping back over to my document details because the last thing I want to show on the sales order side is this Keurig is a manufactured item. We don't have any available at the moment. So if I come up to Actions, I can click on Production Orders here. And this is going to allow me to generate a production order straight from this sales order with the production order linked back to the sales order. So in some other systems like Macola, for instance, that would be considered production pull. And it's essentially, or even a make to order would be another way to take a look at it as well. So we're going to implicitly link a production order back to our sales order. So I can select this guy and create it, and then that's automatically generating the production order for me. So there's a couple options with that. That's something that can happen automatically if you don't want any sort of user interaction with it, something that can be scheduled, or you can just allow the material requirements planning process to go out, see that requirement, and create a production order from there. So it actually, gives you a lot of flexibility into how you want to manage that process based on your internal processes and how those flow. But you can see right here it created production order 258 for me and has linked that back to the sales order automatically for easy tracking and easy processing. So at this point, we're complete with the sales order side of things. So we actually want to jump over to the production order side now. And we're going to go ahead and look up that production order that we just put into the system. So let's come into our production order maintenance. And we'll take a look at today's orders here. So I do want to take a moment to explain a little bit more about this screen, and not just explicitly about the production orders, but you'll notice we've got tabs along the top here, things like planned, released, in process, today's orders, and then we have data down here in the bottom of the screen. You're going to see data presented like this in every single area of the Acumatica application. And I just want to point out how configurable this section is as well. So you'll see all the different headings up here at the top. So I have the ability to filter on any of these headings. So for instance, if I jump back over to all records, well, let's say that I only want to see production orders that are in a planned status. So I can just drop this down and say, okay, show me only planned orders. I can do the same thing by a certain item or a certain warehouse or start date or end date. So any field like this, it's really sort of comparable to when you're in Excel and filtering data in there. You have the ability to slice and dice that data however it makes the most sense to you. I can also click here on the left-hand side and I can add additional columns. So, let's say I want this unit of measure in there. I can click on that, hit the little arrow, and that's going to move it over for me. So now we've got the unit of measure here at the end of our data. I can also just drag and drop columns as well and sort them how I want to. So let's say I want the start date over here. I can just drag that guy over, move that around, and that's going to save it for me. So it's all about effectively interacting with data in an easy manner. And even these little tabs, like if I go to my today's orders, I can click on this little filter here, and you can see that this is set up to look at our start date and a certain status, but these little tabs can be saved off as well. So you have the ability to configure these too, so either on a global basis or on a user-by-user basis. So it really helps in maneuvering throughout the application. So let's go ahead and drill down into our production order that was created here. So you'll see it pulled in the quantity of 1 from our sales order and is scheduling based off of the bill of material and operation steps for this product, along with what the ship date was on that sales order. So we're essentially looking at it actually needed to be started yesterday to finish today. So let's look at what it's going to actually take us to make this particular order. So I want to direct us up to the top here and take a look at our inquiries. And you'll see there's lots of different inquiries here. We can drill down onto the production detail and take a look at the captured bill of material for this particular production order. So if we needed to swap out something, if we were short something and we had another part, we could do that right there from the production detail. But we're going to take a look at our critical material. So what this is going to do for me is this is going to blow through the bill of material, and this is telling me everything that I need to make this particular product. So you'll see here, if we look under replenishment source, I've got 2 subassemblies that need to be manufactured, so the printed circuit board and the inlet, and then I've got some purchase items that we don't have any on hand, but I need one to make this product. So this lets me quickly see what I'm missing. So if I were to come to this screen and nothing showed up, then it means I have everything in stock already that I need to make this product. Now, the nice thing about this screen too is I have the ability to take action right from this as well. So it's not just a report that I have to go take the information somewhere else and do something with. I have the ability to, click off on these different items, and then depending on if it's something we need to manufacture or something that we need to purchase, up here at the top you'll see I've got a purchase and manufacture button. So I have the ability to actually generate the purchase orders straight from this screen, or the production orders for the subassemblies straight from this screen as well. So again, it's just all about having the information I need to make informed decisions about my production right here at my fingertips. So if I go back to my production order here, there's a few other things that we want to take a look at as we're doing this. I do have the ability under Actions, so we just looked at the critical materials and the ability to create the manufacturing orders through that. We talked a little bit too about the material requirements planning, or MRP module, and you also have the ability to generate the production orders and purchase orders right from that module. And I also have the ability to create the linked production orders for those subassemblies right from the production order here. So it's very flexible in how I want to manage my manufacturing process all the way from start to finish there. So a couple other things. Again, we're not going to go through every single field on this guy here, but I would like to point out some other pieces as well. So one of these is being the Totals tab over here. So you'll notice I have Planned, Actual, and Variance. So this is really handy from a informational standpoint, because it's going to give me the ability to pull up any production order that's in process and be able to see what my planned values were, so like what my planned labor was, my planned material, so on and so forth, what I've got in WIP and what we've actually accumulated so far, in this case nothing, and then what my variance is. So it really lets me keep track of my my manufacturing process and what's happening along the way. And then from a historical standpoint, if I come over and take a look at my Vin history, this also tells me everything that's ever happened with this production order. So let's say we go ahead and come up to Actions, and let's release this order. So you'll see it added another line here to the event history, demonstrating that this was created and then released. And then as material starts to get issued to this production order, and as production starts getting completed, we're going to see that event history keep getting updated. So there's never any question about what's going on with any work order at any given time. So now that we've released this production order, let's just take a quick look at what a production ticket would look like, just to give you an example. So this would be like a traveler that you would send out to the floor to perform the work, and this is something that either you could physically print it if you needed to, or you'd be able to have this on your tablet out there at the different work centers as well. So we're just seeing, okay, at Work Center 10, here's the material that we need to pull for that, what's been completed, and then go on to our next work center there. So it's a pretty common type of document, but if there's certain custom information that needs to be added there, it's very easy to add that sort of information to that as well. So now that we've released this production order, let's talk a little bit about the scheduling aspect of this. So we've created our production order, we've released it, and in this case we went ahead and printed our production ticket or traveler. But now we want to get into more advanced type of scheduling. So let's say I come back over to my production orders here, and let's actually take a look at our work center capacity. So what this is going to do for us is take a look at all the scheduled production orders that we have out there, in a given date range, in this case from, let's move this to 12/12 to 1/12 on a weekly basis, and I can look at what my utilization by work center by week is in this case. So for example, if we look at work center 10 here, we can see that I've got a total of 36 blocks. Now, what a block means is that's a configurable unit of time that's specific to your business. So, for example, if you're running stuff that's very quick turn, a block might be a minute. You know, if certain jobs only take 5 minutes to run, then you would be managing that block of time in minutes. But then if you have a much larger or longer type of manufacturing process, that block of time might be hours or maybe even a full day. So again, it's configurable to what your process is, but what this ultimately gives us then is what our total capacity by work center is, and then what we have planned and scheduled out in each one of those work centers. So we can see visually here that, like in work center 100, for the scheduled date of 12/12, I've got 36 blocks of available time, but I've got 84 planned blocks, which is obviously way over, which puts me at a plan utilization percentage of 233%. So we say, well, that means we either need to reschedule some of these jobs, or we're going to maybe need to bring on, in this case, a couple more shifts, probably at least a whole other shift or something like that to be able to complete it. So it starts giving you the information to make decisions about how you want to schedule out and plan your production. And then if I click on this date here, this is actually going to let me drill down and see what's making up that big, huge amount of time that's going into that work center. So I can see here I've got some different production orders here. So I've got a bunch of production orders that are scheduled to be worked on in this particular work center. And you can see how much time, like 9 hours, 9 hours, so on and so forth, that each one of these is taking. And that's what's creating that big, huge sort of overscheduled blob there in that particular work center. So we know we need to start making some decisions around how to handle that production, and if we can push some of this out, or again, if we need to maybe bring on some overtime. So I've got all that information readily available, so I can schedule and plan accordingly by each work center, as well as a whole. So now that we've taken a look at scheduling, let's pop back over momentarily and actually finish out our work order. So we're kind of jumping through the phase of it's been out there on the floor, we've done all the work, and now we're ready to actually report that. So let's just go ahead and pull up our particular order again. And we can go ahead and come in and let's create a move transaction. And what this does is this is actually going to complete this work order. So move is sort of synonymous with doing an issue into finished goods, or crossing a Y count point, so to speak, depending on what terminology you may be using in your manufacturing operations. So we're going to complete one of these guys, and all I need to do is take this off hold and release this, and then I'm actually going to repeat this process because that was at my operation 10 step, and if you recall all the way back to the bill of material in those operations, we have 2 operations that need to be completed in this particular production process. So if I come back in and go ahead and create another move, we'll see it's now going to do this at operation 20 for me, which was my inspection and completion step. Do a quantity of 1. And just kind of as a side note, we haven't talked about this much, but if you look in the lot serial number here, you'll notice that the system automatically assigned a serial number for me. That's because we had this item, this Keurig item, configured to be serialized and set up for Acumatica to automatically assign the next sequential serial number to it. the serialization process has a lot of options as far as if you want to use Julian dates, if you want it to be something that you key in, if you want to put a couple fields together to make the serial number. But for my Keurig here, it's just a pretty simple, take the next available serial number and assign that to the finished product. So I can go ahead and take this guy off hold, release it. So what that's going to do is actually put a Keurig in inventory for me. And keep in mind that this production order was linked back to the original sales order. So now that's going to indicate that that sales order is ready to complete as well. So we've finished out our production order. So now we're ready to actually go back onto the sales order side and see how that's going to look now that we've finished production and put a Keurig into our inventory that's tied back to that particular sales order. So I could open up the sales order and do these transactions from there, but kind of want to show a little different flavor of what bulk processing looks like within Acumatica. So anytime that there's a transaction that can be acted against. So on the production order side, we looked at it at a single production order standpoint. But things like on the sales order side, creating shipments, getting things shipped out the door, creating invoices, all of that can be done in bulk. Just like on the production order side, all of the steps we went through, we could also do those in kind of a mass process as well. So again, going back to ease of use, and making processes as simple as possible for folks. So if I come into my process orders here, it's going to ask me, well, what do you want to do? So I'm going to say I want to create a shipment, and because we completed that production order, we now have a quantity available to ship for this order. And if you recall, we added our little demo order description here. So because we completed that, this sales order is now ready and available to ship. Now, what I wanted to point out on this screen is you'll see we have our sales order, but we have a bunch of other sales orders too. So I'm going to stage this one up for shipping by clicking the little button here on the left and processing it. But you could also do this in bulk and say, okay, here's everything that's ready to go to ship today. I want to ship all of this and get that ready. So let's go ahead and process this. And what this is going to do for me is actually create what Acumatica refers to as a shipment. And that gives you some flexibility in how you want to build out shipments. So maybe you have a customer that has, a large customer that you're maybe getting EDI orders from, and they have 10 sales orders that are going out today. Well, you don't want to have to ship all of those individually. You want all of those shipments to be combined, or all of those sales orders to be combined into one single shipment that's going out. So it gives you the power to build out those shipments, like add pallets and boxes to those shipments and get that ready to send out. So let's actually drill down into the shipment then and kind of show you what the next phase of that process looks like. So it's taken all the information from our sales order, move that onto the shipment, and we can even look and see like what sort of boxes and things are on here. So if I take a look at like my settings, for instance, it pulled over our FedEx ground that we had taken a look at before from the sales order. So it's implicitly tied back to the sales order, but what you have then is the ability then to add additional orders to that. So if I look at my totals here, you can see I've got all my information from the sales order, what my freight cost is, all of that, right here in one easy to see and easy to utilize place. So if we now actually go ahead and ship this guy out, you'll see I go over to my packages and I have the ability to add, again, boxes, pallets, however I ship things out. And I can say, okay, I want this box to go out. So now I can actually go ahead and confirm the shipment. And this is going to go out and do some things in the system with relieving inventory, things of that nature. But what I want to point out as well is this also went out because we had done FedEx ground. and you'll notice that looks like a FedEx tracking number. So it's going out in real time based on the ship via that I picked, and going to that carrier, interacting with them, getting that data back, writing the tracking information back, and then I can hook this up to a printer and have this print automatically if I need to, but it also will save the shipping label that it created for me as well. So anytime in the future, I can go back into this shipment and be able to see not just tracking information, but a copy of the label that physically went out there. So that's completed the shipment portion of that transaction. So now what that allows us to do then is actually go ahead and create the invoices from there. So I can say, okay, I want to process my shipments, again, doing this in a bulk fashion, and prepare my invoice. So just like we looked with creating the shipments, which is going to initiate our picking sequence and being able to indicate what we're actually sending out the door, we have the ability to do these types of transactions in bulk here. So here's the shipment that we just sent out. So I can select that, or I can select these all together and process that, and that's actually going to create the invoice for me. So I don't have to go through a billing process or anything like that. I'm able to just come in and in a nice, easy to use way, generate all of those invoices. And then finally, if I jump over to the AR and receivable side here, the final kind of step of that process is, well, I've shipped it, I've invoiced the customer, and now I actually need to get this invoice to them. So I can say I want to print invoices and memos, and this gives me some different actions as well, and you'll see things like invoice, email, and memo, and say, well, what does that do? So systematically, I have the option to say that a customer wants to get emailed invoices as opposed to a paper invoice. And our bartending school here likes to get those emailed instead of sent by paper. And if I scroll over here to the right, you can even see that it specifically calls out they don't want it printed, they want it emailed, and I can do this in bulk. I can schedule this too if I don't want to have someone come in and physically do this on any of these process screens as well. I have the ability to add a little schedule, so that means the system will, at whatever time you pick, maybe it's 6 o'clock every day, you want to automatically send out all the invoices that are available to be invoiced. You've got the option to have it just do that for you behind the scenes without having to even touch it. And you have that little schedule guy there on almost every screen that you have the ability to process. So you can automate a lot of these functions that are today probably pretty time consuming, and doing things maybe one invoice at a time, or stuff in envelopes, things like that. You have a lot of opportunity to streamline those sort of processes. So I've selected my invoice here. I can process that guy, and that's actually going to go out and generate an invoice and send that to the customer, and you'll see now it automatically updated to show that it was emailed. So I can even come back into this screen or that particular invoice at any time, and customer calls, said they didn't get the invoice. I can say, well, we emailed it to you, so I'll go ahead and send it again here. So I can look and manually pull that invoice up. And if I need to, straight from the invoice, I can say, okay, well, I want to email this invoice again, or maybe print it out and send it to them as well. So, I've got the ability to see what happened, when it happened, and then easily and effectively communicate to the customer. So I think we'll use this as kind of a wrapping up spot. I wanted to make sure to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. Again, we definitely did not deep dive into any particular area of the application, but wanted to give you guys today a good overview and look and feel of just how things process through, how easy the screens are to use, and just kind of what that day-to-day operation looks like. There's tons of other modules and functionality that we really didn't even touch on today. So going back to the point at the beginning of the session that Jeff had mentioned, in future webinars we may pick very targeted areas. So whether it be going through everything in production, or maybe looking at the built-in CRM and opportunity management, maybe something like field service. So those sort of things that are part of the app that aren't as day-to-day type of operation things, and take a little deeper dive into those. So really appreciate everyone's time today, and giving it a look with us, and hopefully see kind of what this evolution of a modern day ERP system really looks like and feels like, and how that operates, and how it can really help just make day-to-day things more efficient for the folks that are using it. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jeff, and see if we have any questions or any other comments.
Terrific, Dave. Thank you very much. Just a quick comment, Dave. I'm struck. Obviously, I see Acumatica on a regular basis. I see it daily, but I'm struck at the ease of use. Every new time that I look at it, there's something else that just seems so much easier than anything else that I'm familiar with. Popping in that tracking number. I think you identified it by the way it looked. It looked like a FedEx tracking number, and you're right. We can see those, and the system can't auto-generate those. It's got to communicate with that other system. That is really something that customers can benefit from as an efficiency gain. Simply because of the technology, and it reminds me every time I see these things how lucky we are to be working with a company like Acumatica.
Absolutely.
So we do have some questions, and I want to thank everybody for submitting the questions, both in the Q&A and the chat windows. So I don't want to hold things up. I do want to go ahead, though, and Dave, we may have to talk a little bit about some of these, because I think they're really important points.
Okay.
So first of all, what format are the reports or documents like the production ticket in?
So all the reporting within Acumatica is actually within a report writer that's kind of baked into the Acumatica framework. So it's not a third-party type of thing. So taking the production ticket, for example, that's one that's done in that report writer. And the way I would best describe it is it's a Microsoft-based banded report writer. So honestly, it's kind of similar to if you've ever written a report in Access or some of the other Microsoft products. It's got that header, footer, detail, group type of feel. So if you've used things like that, if you've used Crystal, it's going to be very familiar to you, but it is part of the Acumatica framework, so it's not a third-party type of thing. Now, with that said, another sort of reporting option, so to speak, like when we were looking at those grids, like here we've got sales orders listed out, and I won't get into the techie side of it too much, but you'll notice there's a customization button up here at the top and an edit button. You have the ability to add fields to these existing data grids. You also have the ability to create your own data grids as well and add them to the menu so they look just like anything else in the application. So we found that's basically kind of a really slick way of doing ad hoc type of reporting in the system and giving users the power to slice and dice data as they see fit. And then finally, any of the data can be accessed with an OData connection. So if you're looking for external reporting tools like Power BI, even Excel, other sort of BI sort of tools, you can hook up via OData to your Acumatica data and display it in that way as well. So you have a lot of options, and I probably said a lot more than just answering the initial question, but I felt like it was important to cover that.
That's great, and actually that is kind of what I meant when I said we may need to talk about and explore this a little bit, because obviously there are additional ISVs. Now, we've been talking about the format of reports and docs within the system, but reporting opens up another sort of window or another sort of area for us to talk about, because reporting can mean different things to different people. And if you are talking about really more than basic financial reporting, there may be an add-on that would provide you what you want, even though what Acumatica has is sufficient for the vast majority of customers. For instance, you mentioned BI, Dave. I know that we are working with, I think it's 3 or 4 different BI providers that are approved ISVs in the Acumatica ecospace, right?
Correct. Yep, that are already plumbed up to Acumatica and everything. So,
Right.
along those lines, there's, like I said, there's a very large ISV community as well. So it's really set up, as a platform to run your business, but also to be open, and easily accessible, for lack of a better word, by other systems as well, to help flesh out your whole business ecosystem.
Right. Now, I don't want to overlook the most basic part of that question that we got, which is, what format are the docs, like the production ticket? Is there a 3-digit extension like PDF or TXT?
There is. It's called a RPX.
Okay.
It is specific to the Acumatica platform.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we got that answer included
Yep,
there
I
also.
managed to verbosely answer a lot of other questions.
No, you're doing fine. And obviously, if somebody wants to explore about what types of documents and reports and things that are available inside of Acumatica, but then also what options are available outside of Acumatica, we can explore that in more depth. But the thumbnail answer is what Dave has already provided to you. Okay, now we've got a couple of interesting, we're pivoting to a little bit different sort of a question, and I think actually we've got a couple of questions related to this area. As you know, Dave, many of our customers from Macola are attending and looking at our demo today. So the question was asked, is there any part of the system installed on site? And I know that that answer is not as easy as a yes or no answer.
Yeah, it's not a yes or no answer. It's a how do you want it to be answer. So what I mean by that is Acumatica offers 3 different deployment options, and as far as I know, they're the only cloud ERP provider to offer all of these different options. So option number 1 is no, there's nothing installed on site. So that's a true SaaS, or software as a service installation, meaning that you sign the contract, and a couple days later you get an email from Acumatica with a URL, and your instance is spun up, and you don't have any database, any application, anything installed locally. It is 100% hosted by Acumatica, on Amazon Web Services. The other option is what they call private cloud, or perpetual. And those are basically the same from a technology standpoint, but they're licensed a little differently, and we probably won't get into that today. But it's basically saying you want to purchase the software, and then you install it locally, on site. So you're running the application on a web server, and you have a SQL database server that you're running it on, or you want to deploy it to your own hosted environment. So like maybe if you already have like an Azure environment set up, or your own AWS environment, and you want to just deploy it into that environment, you can do that as well. So really it's all of the above, and they give you the flexible options to meet, what level of IT sophistication you have on staff. Some people want to own that and keep their arms around it and be in charge of the app, whereas other people, don't have the IT folks on staff and want to wash their hands of it and have it all be taken care of. So it's really up to you and what fits your business.
And actually, Dave, you use the word flexible, and I use that word frequently when I'm talking to people about Acumatica. They really do offer you the opportunity to make your own decision about how you want it deployed, and they also give you flexible choices about how to purchase the software as well. So it is interesting that the cloud ERP actually does give users the opportunity to install it and host it on their own server. But back to the question about any part of the system installed on site, you have the opportunity if you want to install it on your own server. Maybe it's because you're in a sensitive industry, either maybe a contractor for the military or some other types of industries where you need to lock down your data and you just don't trust having it hosted someplace.
Mhm.
There is an option available for you with Acumatica, whereas with some other systems there wouldn't be. But I was also struck by when I first read the question, I was thinking about the old Macola install where you had the installation on the server, but then you also had to make an installation on the actual client workstation.
Yeah, and there's none of that hybrid stuff where it's, part website and part client. So if you do install it on site, you have it installed in one place running as a website on a web server, and that's it. Everyone still, opens up Chrome or Edge or Safari or whatever browser they're using, hits that URL, and that's how they're accessing it. There's no client components that someone needs to download and install on their local workstation for it to run.
Perfect, perfect. Now, another question that came in that's a little bit of a digression. It's about the universal search.
Mhm.
Is there a system hit or lag or delay for that Google type search of the entire database if the database is really, really large?
Not significantly. I mean, we do have customers that have larger, databases like we're, tens to hundreds of thousands of items and transactions. And when you're searching, it might take a couple seconds, like 2 to 3 seconds, to bring the results back. Whereas, in my demo database, it's pretty much immediate. But there's not a system hit that really goes along with that. And sort of tying that back to an earlier question about the hosting options as well. It's important to note that if Acumatica is doing the hosting and you're using it as a SaaS, it'll scale up and down based with your usage as well. So we haven't seen any really sort of system hit with the search.
Right, and we will address, I think, with the next question that we've got in the queue, some questions about you mentioned about resource allocation, and I think that part of that it is explained when we think about the way that Acumatica sells the software, is that they don't sell based upon a number of named users. They are not selling you named user licenses, as most software companies do. And what they're looking at in many ways is what resources, if it's especially hosted in the SaaS environment, what resources are necessary for you to operate the software optimally for your business. Now, they don't want you to pay for resources in the cloud that you wouldn't need. And so there are parameters that we look at when making sure that we are sizing appropriately for your business that take into account things like how big is your database, for instance.
Right.
Right. So there's more discussion to be had around this area, but to the specific question that we got in terms of the speed and performance of the universal search, I haven't seen any degradation in response time that was really noticeable based upon the size of the database. Now, because I just alluded to, I'm going to skip one of the questions. The next question I want to get to is, are there any cloud storage fees for things like saved reports, invoices, shipping labels, etc. over time?
No, I think that kind of piggybacks on what you were just explaining there, Jeff. So it really is. It's all the licensing is based around volume of transactions, and not size or space. So it is unique, and especially in the ERP space. But if you excuse me, if you have a terabyte of data, you're not going to get charged extra for that space that's being used. It's all about transactional volume. Now, some of that sort of naturally scales appropriately. I mean, generally, the more invoices you're doing, the more space you're using because there's more things like those labels going along with it, but you're not specifically charged anything extra for space that's being used.
Right. And the one thing I would add is there are a number of sort of guidelines of what they're expecting the resources that you would need based upon certain transaction levels and things like that. And they do spell out the amount of storage that comes with each of those license resource tiers. And we would obviously want to make sure that if you are particularly intensive in terms of documents and storage, you're going to know that. And obviously, we would ask that you mention that to us to make sure that we have the discussion, that we lay out for you all of the guidelines and parameters around the different license resource tiers, because some industries, some companies are more, for instance, data intensive and want or think that they need more storage. So let's take a look at that. And there is the opportunity to add additional resources if needed. And as Dave said, it is something that can scale with you. So if today, for instance, you only, for instance, if you're in medium resource level and based on transactions and everything else just fits perfectly, but as you continue to use the system, your transaction volume goes up because your business is booming, and you need to move to the next resource tier up because of those parameters of the resource tiers. It is a seamless transition done with Acumatica, and it will not um, create a disruption to your business. It's essentially adding more resources. I don't want to make it sound like it's just flipping a switch, but it's essentially adding resources as you need them. And also, they have a couple of years ago, they changed the tiers so that they are not as big a jumps from tier A to tier B, and therefore it is a more cost effective scaling to meet your business requirements, and you don't have to take as big a jump in resource tiers as you used to in the Acumatica world. So there are many ways in which it will scale with you, both in terms of performance, but also in terms of all the tangential things that you will need to run your business, like additional storage to store all the documents, reports, invoices, etc., that you need. And that is something that obviously we can have a deeper conversation with you about at any point. Feel free to reach out to us. Now, Dave, one question came up, and it was interesting because I didn't really catch it before, but one of our attendees noticed that when you made a change on your screen, there was a little countdown clock that showed how long it was going to take for that transaction to process, or that process to take to complete.
Mhm.
And the question was, is there a clock like that on every screen?
There actually is. So it's interesting. Every time you do a transaction, like if you commit it, you save a transaction or commit it or doing a process or something like that, that actually pops up in the upper right-hand side, even if it just takes, less than a second. Or if you're doing a larger process, then it might take a few seconds, and it shows you how long it's taking to process. So I think it's sort of comparable to, on some applications where you'll get a little pop-up that says like please wait and an hourglass or something like that. But it's kind of nice too, because then if you think something's taking abnormally long, you know specifically how long it's actually taking, and you know that it's still running.
Right, and that was kind of the gist of the question. I consolidated, or I refined the question when I asked it as it came in. But it did seem as though it was a way that gave users an opportunity to gauge whether it was really taking longer than they thought it should. And obviously, if there are any performance issues, then we would want to make sure that we looked into it, as well as Acumatica, because we want to make sure that we have the appropriate resource level for the number of transactions that you're doing. And if there is something that is causing a degradation in that performance, obviously there are multiple factors that it could be. Maybe it's your internet connection is not good. Oh, but there could be lots of other reasons, and that is obviously the one way that people always use to determine how well it's performing. How long does it take to do this task? Right? So I think that was the reason that came up during the questions.
Okay,
Um,
excellent.
so I don't see any other questions. We've gone a little bit over the allotted time for our presentation today. If anybody has further questions, please feel free to reach out to anyone here at Algorithm. Our toll-free number is 888-522-8588, or feel free to reach out to salesteam@algorithminc.com. We'd be happy to work with you and answer whatever questions you may have. Obviously, if you have a more technical sort of question, then we're going to request or at least consult with a resource that would be able to provide us the information that you're asking for. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we did record today's presentation. We will be sharing that with our attendees after we're done downloading it from the WebEx system. And that is a way, obviously, that you'll be able to share this with other people within your organization. If you do want to see something else in Acumatica that we have not shown, I would ask you to do two things. Number one, please contact us and let us know, and we'll arrange a demonstration for you. But more importantly, we also are going to have that survey that you're going to see when you leave WebEx today. And if there are things that you would like to see more of, or other ideas that you have for different presentations, please share those ideas with us, because obviously we only think of it from our side. We try to be considering your needs and requirements as you're looking at a system like this, but you know your business better than we do. And if there is something mission critical that you'd like to see, please let us know. We'll make sure that we try to incorporate that either in a webinar or arrange a private demonstration for you. Lastly, I'm going to remind everybody that we do have, this is an ongoing webinar series, so we do have additional presentations already scheduled. Feel free to visit our website and sign up for any of the upcoming webinars that you would like to attend, but also you can add your name to our marketing list so that you're notified when we do have new webinars scheduled, and that would give you a great opportunity to register for those. That said, I think we're going to wrap it up for today. Dave, thank you once again for a great presentation, and obviously we've got some great questions here. I have a feeling there may be some more headed your way, so obviously if anybody has a question, send it to us and we'll make sure we take care of getting you an answer. And then to our attendees, I want to make sure I say thank you for making the time today. You shared your lunch with us, I believe, and we hope that you found it both appetizing and interesting. And we would be remiss if we didn't say we would love the opportunity to follow up with you, and feel free to reach out to us in case we don't reach out to you quickly enough. I think that's it. Dave, is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to say?
Nope, just appreciate everyone's time today, and look forward to maybe talking with some folks more and getting more in depth with the app, and glad everyone showed up today.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you again soon.